back on Kentucky Basketball Access. It's been a little minute since my last drop, but we're back at it. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Big game tonight against the LSU Tigers. They are 13-12. We have a big win, man. We just got done beating the Auburn Tigers, and I would like to say that me and Tony in our last prediction got it right. Tony predicted a 9-point win, and it was an 11-point win. So anyway, we may get into that a little bit, but really quickly, by the way, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe below, please. I really appreciate it. It just takes a second. Just hit that subscribe button, comment, give it a thumbs up. It helps the activity, helps the engagement with the YouTube algorithm. Appreciate you guys tuning in again. So again, we got a big game tonight against LSU. They're 13-12. They're off of a big win at South Carolina, where they came back from a 16-point deficit, won by 1 point. And if you recall, we got handled by South Carolina. They may be reeling a little bit, but good teams. Houston lost two games in a week. So just because South Carolina lost 2 games, they lost to a good Auburn team. And it's funny, when we beat a team, it's like, well, these guys may be posers. These guys may be frauds. When Kentucky beats a team, or even if we lose to a team, it's just we're kind of like the favored punching bag, I think, of a lot of pundits. But it doesn't matter. All we have to do is keep playing. So tonight, look, let me address this first. Are we a Final Four contender? Now, some people would say we're a Jekyll and Hyde, right? And I would say that's fair in certain ways. I'd also say it's fair to say if you look at our losses, we have not had our full team together one full game. We were almost there, then Trey got hurt in the second half. What I'm saying is, look, a lot of teams are losing right now. Tons of teams are losing. We are in a good place. We're 18-7, right there in on the cusp of really breaking through the SEC potential of getting that double bye, which I think we can get. I really do. We'll talk about that here in a second. But are we a Final Four contender? Absolutely. You hear about the defensive efficiency metrics, okay? The last 2 games, I said this. If you'll look back in my videos, I want to, when I'm wrong, I want to say I'm wrong. Some of my predictions have been wrong, but as far as talking about this team defensively, I think we're now in the top 80 in KenPom. We were I think at 120. The last 2 games have demonstrated against good offensive teams. Now you can say, oh, they had off games. No, it was the type of a pressure we were applying. DJ Wagner. Well, let me say something before I mention DJ. I said people who say this team is just going to be a bad defensive team no matter what, we're just going to have to deal with it. I think it's just wildly inaccurate. I don't think that's the case because we have guys who can play defense. We have dudes who can match up. We have dudes who actually have the potential to be really good defenders, and you've seen that the last 2 games because we've had an approach, we've had a temperament, we've had a mentality that we are going to get up in the offensive player, whether it's on-ball pressure, whether it's fighting off screens, whether it's making it difficult for them to make cuts in the lane. It's all about activities, about communication, and above all, yes, you need sound defensive approach and technique, but if you don't have effort, if you don't have the right temperament, the right mentality, and that's where I think DJ Wagner, and I said this, DJ is our 4th best offensive player, or our 4th best guard overall. I believe that, behind Reeves, Sheppard, and Rob Dillingham. But the tone he sets defensively could be, and I think is key to our success. I'm not saying it is the main catalyst for our success, but I think it's one of those components. His defensive pressure on the ball. And he has a mentality. He just has that type of grit to him that is infectious with other guys. And I tell you what, you see that with the basketball players. Some teams just have a dude who they feed off of. You see the Warriors, Steph Curry and Clay in their prime, and even Steph still, they were the dude. They were the guys who were the best players on that team. But as far as a dude who just brought a temperament, was Draymond Green. You can say what you want about him, but he brought a temperament to that team, okay? You have guys who may not be the top 2, 3, 4, even, the top 4 guy. I would argue he's not maybe even our top 5. I put Trey as our 4th, and now Oduthier maybe as our 5th, or maybe even Ugana. But DJ brings that, so I want to make sure I'm giving him cred where he deserves it. So I think that'll be key tonight, and we'll talk about LSU here in a second. But if you look at the other teams competing right now, I think, to me, okay, look, we have 6 SEC games left, all right? Our 2 big ones are going to be, our 2 big ones, will be Alabama, and then we have, our last game is at Tennessee. But we have Alabama coming this Saturday to Rupp. Look, I think we can easily go 5-1 in our last 6 games. The Tennessee game is going to be tough, but we beat Tennessee last year. We had an inferior team last year. They had I think a commensurate team that they have this year. So is it in the cards for us to go 6-0? Absolutely. Is it in the cards for us to go 2-4 with only winning against Arkansas and Vandy at home? Yeah. I think Arkansas and Vandy, never gimmies, but I think they are solidly in the win column. LSU tonight's going to be tough. And we'll talk about the matchup here in a second, but that's going to be a tough win. LSU just came off, as I just mentioned, beating South Carolina. They've had some close games. They're 13-12. That record, I think, is not necessarily indicative of how good they actually are. But if we can win against LSU tonight, Alabama on Saturday at Rupp Arena, that puts us solidly at 20-7, and I believe that puts us at 12-4 in the SEC. I can't remember our SEC record. I know we have 4 losses, but we're right there. Okay? So again, we win these games this week. Puts us at 20-7. I think, I'm not a bracketologist. I'm not Joey Brackets. But I think that puts us right on the cusp of a 3 seed. Okay? We may be, when the NCAA tournament, or the NCAA committee releases their bracket preview next weekend, I think it's next weekend or the following weekend, I think for sure we're the top 16. Definitely. We're on the cusp right now. We're probably the highest number 5 seed, I would say. So we win this week. I think, depending on what other teams do, we're at least on the 4 seed line. At the very least, possibly at the low end of a 3 seed. So just think about that, guys. We're at a 3 seed this week. It is well within possibility. If we win out, we go 6-0 to end the SEC regular season, puts us at potentially winning the SEC. And at that point, man, it's 2 seeds on the table. So, guys, here's the thing. The season's still right there. And regardless of what I think what happens in the SEC tournament, I've said this. If we can just string together 4 wins in a row right now, we beat 2 NCAA tournament teams. LSU at LSU will be a quad 2 win probably. But I think that's another quality win. Okay, it may not be a quad 1 win. They likely are not an NCAA tournament team, but that's a solid win at LSU. Anytime you're winning away in the SEC, it's going to be a solid win. Okay, even Vandy, I think, is a solid win. Or maybe rephrase that. Vandy may not be a solid win at any point this year, but playing in Memorial Coliseum in Nashville is always tough. So again, we go 2-0 this week, 20-7. We're right there in the conversation. And you look at other teams. I mean, UConn got eviscerated by Creighton. Creighton's a good team, but Creighton, they're not world beaters. When we lost to South Carolina. They were in the top 11 after this past weekend. We got beat by a little less than 20 points, and UConn, the number 1 ranked team in the country, got beat by 20 plus points yesterday. So again, it's a very fluid season. A lot of fluidity going on. I think if we can just, again, maintain consistency, we can go this week winning 4-0, 4-game winning streak. Alabama is certainly in that conversation of an NCAA tournament team, a top 4 seed. We're right there, okay? Let me talk about Reed Sheppard really quickly because I mentioned him in the title. Big Reed Sheppard fan. He's my guy on this team, as probably millions of other people who are Kentucky fans. I like all of the guys, but he's just watching Jeff, his dad, back in 1998 win the national championship against Utah was just a lot of nostalgia watching him and wearing his dad's number. I just love his game, love his approach. I've been following NBA mock drafts for some time now, and I think the most credible mock drafts, ESPN released their mock draft recently, and he's 12th. I think Rob was 4th maybe, but I've seen Reed as high as 2. I mean, hear me out. I'm not saying Reed Sheppard is going to be the 2nd overall pick in the NBA draft, but CBS, Gary Parrish, who's no fan of Kentucky basketball, had Reed Sheppard as the number 2 overall prospect. At one point, Sam Vecini of The Athletic had Reed as the number 4 overall prospect. I think he released his recently, and Reed came in at 11th. But I've seen another one at Bleacher Report with Reed at 8, I believe, and Rob at 9. As much as I don't want to say this, it would take a miracle for Reed to come back next year. There's just too much money on the table, too much, assets on the table for him being a top 12 pick in the NBA draft. Now, I've not seen any mock draft guys have him lower than 14 right now. That's a lottery pick. And if you're a lottery pick, man, it's I don't know many guys who are bona fide lottery picks who come back in this day and age. I mean, now I will say this with a caveat. If he's not guaranteed to be a top 20 pick, which at this point I just don't see that happening, his productivity, he's sustained the kind of some of the question marks NBA scouts have had. One of the question marks they've had is, can he sustain the productivity, his efficiency level? And Reed Sheppard has demonstrated he's been able to sustain his productivity to the point where his shooting efficiency, his efficiency as far as anything offensive metric and even defensive metric is off the charts. So that being said, the caveat with he's got a lot of money on the table if he comes back to Kentucky. And I think some people will say it's 100% he goes if he's a lottery pick. I would say 95%. I would give it a little more because you can't downplay the fact that I don't think his family needs money. I think his parents, from what I can tell, are fine financially. I think he's a Kentucky boy. It's in his blood to be a Kentucky basketball player. The enjoyment you get as a Kentucky basketball player, the type of even publicity is going to be greater than you would as an NBA player, at least for your first few years. And he's got a lot of if he's got a lot of money on the table coming back in NIL. There's no telling how much money he'd have coming back for another year, but I get all the other arguments as to why he should go. So anyway, Reed Sheppard, in my opinion, is an absolute NBA draft pick. Is he top 5? Could he get to that level? I mean, some people say he is. I think for him to be a top 5 draft pick with this draft class being a little weaker, he has got to up his production a little more and demonstrate against really quality athletic teams. He can be the stud every single game. And he's shown that. He's shown that he can be a stud in a lot of games. He's got to sustain that. And I think one of the things, I'll say this and I'll close out with my section on Reed, his defensive instincts are second to none. Best defensive instincts of any Kentucky basketball player I've ever seen. His ability to get his hands on the ball, his ability to be in lanes, passing lanes, his ability to just be crafty, to kind of be a rover out there, it's second to none. If he can demonstrate his on-ball pressure, if he can demonstrate that he can keep guys out of the lane, defensively, which he has been doing a better job of, his on-ball pressure has been better, but then if he can continue to maintain his offensive production, higher volume of shooting, I think he absolutely can get in that top 5 range. But he's definitely a lottery pick. So unfortunately, guys, as much as I don't want to say this, I don't think Reed's coming back next year. Would never have said that. Thought that he'd be a one-and-done guy, but that's understandable if he is. All right, we're going to close out with LSU preview tonight, guys. So LSU, we got the Tigers again. 2 Tigers in a row. Auburn and LSU. All right, guys, they got Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright is a stat sheet stuffer for LSU. It starts with him. He leads them in points, rebounds, assists, steals, the gamut, all right? So this guy he's a guard, and he leads their team in rebounding. So we really got to make sure we know where he's at. The 3-point shooting for them is not extremely impressive. They have a guy named Tyrell Ward who shoots at around 42%, which is really good. Other guys, Wright is about 34%, and so it's going to be extremely important. So let me rephrase that. They've got in Jalen Cook, who would be their leading scorer, but he's not played as many games, so that's why I'm not sure of his availability tonight. I think he probably will play. So their backcourt, they have 2 guys scoring in the 15-point range, okay, and not a great assist team from what I can see. So. But they're a team, and I'm telling you this, they're playing in Pete Maravich Assembly Center. I think it's called the Assembly Center. Pete Maravich, probably my all-time favorite basketball player. They're playing in that environment, and so it's going to be tough for us to maintain a temperament like we had against Auburn. But if we do that, we come out and we play them strong, we're putting pressure on their guards, we're not allowing them to have just wide open threes, even though they're shooting around 30%. Still can't have those guys go off because once you start hitting threes, it becomes a mentality, and then all of a sudden the goal becomes the ocean. So we got to make sure we're applying pressure as we did against Auburn. And I would say this: Uganda has to continue to protect the rim, and if Trey's not playing tonight, we've got to have a third guy in there to help Adu, whether it's Bradshaw or Z. I mean, I think one of those guys has to, show and demonstrate they can give us at least 5 to 10 minutes in the game to supplement what Uganda is giving us under the basket if Trey's not available. So he just came in there last game, man, and he was not. I could tell. It's like this is not the game for him. The physicality, how intense it was, he just wasn't ready for it. So I get why Z didn't play last game. And Aaron, I think, was a little more serviceable, but both those guys combined for like 3 minutes in the game. We need them to at least be serviceable for 5 to 10 minutes tonight if Trey's not out there. But hey, look, if we can, here's the keys to the game, and I'll end on this. We approach with high defensive intensity. We match their defensive tenacity the first 4 minutes because they're going to come out playing with spirit. It's going to be crazy. The gym's going to be packed. It's going to be raucous. It's going to be loud. It's going to be, again, I agree with Cal, it's going to be that team Super Bowl. So we've got to come out with that temperament the first 4 minutes. Just don't get down like 13-2. Maintain a margin within 3 to 4 points after that 4-minute media timeout. And then after that, man, we're good. Like we've demonstrated we can stick with teams and beat teams if we just don't come out flat, okay? That's the first key. Don't come out flat. Secondly, man, just continue to be effective moving the ball on offense. Guys, look, just and this is what I say to them. Look, and Cal, I think, does a good job with this. Just get the ball to the open guy. Just get the ball to the open guy. We have too many guys who can create on offense. We have 4 guys who can create a shot on offense. We can get open shots, continue to move it, be unselfish, and at the end of the day, we have more talent, and that's why I think we're going to pull off the dub. All right, that's it for me, guys. Appreciate it. My wife is cooking some amazing tilapia right now, and I'm going to go get something to eat. So go Cats. Big game tonight. Let's pull it out. Thanks for tuning in, and subscribe if you haven't. Appreciate y'all.